Get ahead and get started. So hello everyone and good afternoon. I hope you're all doing well out there. My name is Mary Young and I'm the Community Liaison in Austin, Texas with SonderMind. And we're thrilled to have you here for episode 6 of SonderMind's webinar series called Going There. During today's webinar series, we're going to dive into the psychology behind our obsession with the thoughts of others and how we can overcome those and be able to stop thinking about what others are thinking of us. We're really excited to get support our communities over the next couple of months with these weekly virtual events that are going to cover a range of both supportive and interesting topics. So we're very happy for all of you that were able to join us. A couple of housekeeping items. We'll be muting our guests for this presentation, although I encourage everyone to use the chat box to type in any questions throughout, and we'll take some time to answer those during the webinar, as well as some time at the end as well. So please feel free to ask questions, and if I miss any of them, we'll make sure that we answer them at the end. We are going to be recording today's webinar, and we will send this out to you in email, the one that you use to register. But if you'd like to post about this webinar on social media, please use the hashtag #GoingThereWithSonderMind. Today we are so honored to have Reagan with us. Reagan delivers workshops and keynote speeches on personal effectiveness and leadership development around the country under the banner of Assemble, the consultancy he co-founded in 2016. Before Assemble, he guided initiatives on storytelling, culture, and leadership development at companies like Nike, clearly it is still early, Nike, PepsiCo, Western Digital, and Kimberly-Clark as chief storyteller with the innovative consulting firm Calypso. Reagan has designed leadership courses for Texas State University, Trinity University, and Angelo State University, and as a Teach for America core member on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, he taught high school English and launched their theater program. So again, we are so excited that Reagan joined us. So Reagan, please feel free to take over.
Well, hello there. Thank you, Mary. Such an honor to be joining you and the SonderMind Network today. It's a gift to be here with you all, wherever you are in the country. And I don't take it lightly that you're giving us an hour of your time and promise to make it useful. So we will get started here. First, on any session that I do, I like to begin with gratitude, and I think particularly now that is really helpful, because who knows, good thing we can't see your video, because who knows what your house looks like behind you, who knows what kids are doing, or who knows what email we might have brought with us into the meeting. So in order for us to be able to receive whatever we need to receive today, let's clear the slate and take a deep breath together. And let your shoulders maybe fall a little bit, sit up straight wherever you are. And I want you to think for me, what's one thing that's going right for you right now? What's a thing that's going right in your life right now? It could be a big one. It could be something about your work or your family, or an idea that you've been working on that has finally come to fruition. Or it could be a very small little thing, like you realize there was one more banana left that you got to eat for breakfast this morning. What's the thing going right you can focus on? And if you don't mind, throughout the day today, I'll ask you guys to respond in the chat box so that we can be engaged and have a little more of a conversation. So share with us what's going right for you in your life today. I'd love to see that pop up in the chat box. I'll give you a couple of seconds. What is going right? For me, I'll tell you what, I know that the weather's not too hot here in Texas where I'm at, and we're getting to go on a walk with the pup here in a second. Emily is thankful for finances. Big thing to be grateful for right now. Thank you very much. Ooh, I need some of that. Send me some of that. What else? Anything else that we're grateful for? Drop in the chat. Walks with the dogs. I feel you, Mary. I tell you, we're clocking miles with our dogs lately. What a gift that has been. So thank you all for starting with us. I'll be continuing to ask throughout the session, so be ready at the chat with me. It's a gorgeous morning in Denver, on the patio with the pup, sipping coffee. We're jealous, Jolene. Don't show us a picture of that because we're going to be jealous. Grateful for completed home repairs, says Vanessa. I love it. Kyle says, had a good conversation with a business partner that resolved some online tension.
Lexi also said that she was thankful for the mountains and nature so close by here in Colorado.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you all for helping uplift my morning a little bit and for being here and engaging with me there. And I'm feeling the home repair people, I'm feeling you. We de-rusted a bunch of cast iron recently, and that's just like satisfying, so satisfying. So grateful that you're here and excited to kick things off with you. Today is really essentially about the Truman Show. If you're anything like me, you've seen the Truman Show with Jim Carrey. It's a film about a guy who lives in this idyllic seaside town in Florida, but in reality, it's all one big live reality TV show. And I remember seeing it as a kid, and if you're anything like me, perhaps you saw this movie and you wondered to yourself, is this my life? Maybe you grew up and you found yourself in an embarrassing moment, or you found yourself doing something for the first time where you feel like everyone's attention was on you and you thought, this has to be a TV show, or my friends are all punking me right now. I'm on the Truman Show. I know that I've thought that before, and that guided me to think about what kind of personal development workshop would I be really excited about giving because I needed it myself. And it came to this realization that for many of us, one thing that we don't talk about is how we're convinced that we're all thinking about what everybody else is doing. So we created a workshop called How to Stop Thinking About What Others Are Thinking About You. So in order to kick us off today, I'd like to offer a little bit of a story to illustrate what I'm talking about. Tell me if you relate with any of the following. So let's imagine you wake up in the morning, you're in your bed, you open your eyes, you look at your ceiling, you look out the window, and you think to yourself, things are going well so far. I haven't had the chance to trip over anything in my life yet. And you have these few moments of peace until you notice lurking right there down in the shadows next to your pillow is your telephone. And so against your better judgment, you know not to do this, but you say, oh, I might as well. So you're in the bed and you decide that you're going to go for a morning scroll. And so you open up Instagram and you're scrolling through and you see that Charlene and her husband, they've just completed day 20 of the COVID-19 home workout challenge. And everybody's praising Darlene. And you think to yourself, I've done zero of the days of the COVID-19 workout challenge. What must people think about my fitness? Does my partner think anything about my fitness? I should probably get in shape. And then you notice that Jason is still posting pictures about their trip to the West Indies, I don't know, about a year ago, but they're one of those people on Instagram who sprinkled the pictures of the post of the trip that's been over for a year and just, say, oh, just missing the islands today. And you think, I don't go on vacations. People must know that I don't go on good vacations. Am I fulfilling my potential in life? Well, now you're going. And so you get up and you make it to the shower. And instead of taking a peaceful shower, you think, man, you know what? My mom has been wanting to do a Zoom chat with the whole entire family every weekend since this whole thing started. She's probably going to text me today to ask if we should do a chat. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and come up with a couple of excuses about why I can't do that. Even though she hasn't called me yet, I'm going to come up with my imaginary arguments for this conversation that probably might happen. Well, now we're on a roll. Maybe you go for a walk because it's pretty outside in Denver. Maybe you go for a walk and you're keeping your social distance. So you wave at a neighbor, but they don't see you. And so they don't wave back. And you think, what did I do wrong? They must not like me. When this is all over, they're never going to come to our backyard barbecue anymore. Then you have a Zoom meeting with some people on your team, or maybe have a Zoom meeting with a client and you finish session and you offer one really thoughtful point and they just kind of look at you and you really gave some thought to this point or this suggestion, and they just kind of look at you and say, well, I think that's the end of our meeting. And you know, definitely at the end of every day, all of the people in your life, they gather in a private Zoom conference call to discuss whether or not you are fulfilling your potential and becoming the person who you should become. Don't tell me I'm crazy. That's a hyperbolic situation. But to prove the point, am I the only one that spends any of my time being weighted by this low-level hum of anxiety that maybe people are out there sizing me up, that maybe I said something wrong that someone's still thinking about, that maybe people are thinking I could be doing something better with my time or my life? How many of us feel that? So I wonder for you, what does it look like? What does thinking about what other people are thinking about you look like? To start today, what I'd like to do is bring some awareness to what some of the stories are that play, what some of the tapes are that play in your head. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in our brains, much of which you might already know. And then we're going to do an exercise of reflection to help you get unstuck and unencumbered by the thoughts that we have, this obsession that other people might be thinking about us. So I'm going to ask you if you want to open up a Word document or an Evernote document or just good old-fashioned, your pen and a journal. Let's go ahead and spend a minute to bring some awareness to what you might think others are thinking about you. I've provided a bank here for you that you can use if you need something to jog your memory. This could be personally. Do you ever worry that people think you're not a good friend because you leave the text messages unread because you're busy and you like to be present where you are? Are you worried about what your family thinks? Are you worried about what your partner thinks? Are you worried about what your friends think? Or professionally, do you worry that clients think you charge too much? Or do you worry that people judge you because your response to emails is too slow? Do you think people might think you're unproductive? Take a time and jot down what you might worry other people think about you. I know for me, I think people think that I'm too emotional and too sensitive, and I should have more business acumen, that my workshops are really fluffy, and I should have more percentages in my slides. I worry about that. And I also worry about getting everything right. I worry people think I'm competent. And so I worry about doing anything new because I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong. So I'll give you another 20 seconds or so as you jot this down. Write down one really big one, or maybe you have 2 or 3 or 4. And as you're wrapping your thoughts up, this makes everything better for everyone. If we were together in a room, we would be sharing out loud. So please, if you don't mind, dig in with me. I'd love to see a few folks share and have some volunteers and vulnerability. What are some things that you worry about? Again, I worry people think I'm too emotional. I worry people are going to think that I do things wrong if I try, so I just never try. What are some of the things that you think other people are sitting around spending their time thinking about you? Too weird and unprofessional. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, too, right? Too is a big one. T-O-O. I'm too much. I'm too much on this side of things. I'm going to be overbearing for people if I'm completely me. Wonderful. Thank you. Let's see a few more. I'm worried people think I'm what? If you read that part of my bio about being a 10th grade English teacher, that means I can wait. I'm worried people think I don't know what I'm doing professionally. Totally, Rebecca. One day, Rebecca, everyone might find out. Oh, what a sinking feeling. I've got the imposter syndrome. You're not the only one. Thank you, Emily and Rebecca, for dropping those in there. For those of you who are still thinking, I know that you had the bravery there. You were just still writing down really detailed thoughts. So we're going to move forward. Now, for our brave volunteers who just shared with us, if we were together in a room, I would have everyone in the room say together all at the same time, "You're not crazy. I have thoughts like that all the time." So we will all tell you now virtually. Type it in the chat if you like. Emily and Rebecca, "You're not crazy. I have thoughts like that all the time." So we've got these thoughts about what other people might be thinking about us. Yeah, thanks, Mary. We do, right? We have these thoughts about what other people are thinking about us. And perhaps those thoughts, we don't notice them as much until we're invited to bring awareness to them, because we've lived with those thoughts most of our lives. And although they might not be helpful to us, we just believe that that's what the inside of our brains sound like. But what are we missing out on? What is the cost? I invite you to write down another reflection, considering the things that you just wrote that you're afraid other people might be thinking about you. What is the cost? For me, if I think people, think that I'm too emotional, because of my fears, I'm not showing up as 100% me in every situation sometimes. And man, what does it feel like to be internally disingenuous to who I really am? That's going to take a toll in the long term. And it's going to mean that I don't get to connect with people in real and emotional ways. Or if I've got that fear of doing everything right all the time, because of my fear that I might not do everything right and people are going to judge me, I'm going to shy away from doing new things and miss out on life experiences that might make for a richer life. So for you, as you consider the things that you're worried people think about you that we just did, go ahead and write down, because of those worries, because of those fears, what might you be missing out on? What might you not be participating in? What conversation might you not be having? And to follow Emily and Rebecca's lead, I'd love it if any of y'all would be willing to type in what the cost is for believing these narratives about what other people might be thinking about us. Rebecca says, because of those fears, not allowing myself to learn and fail. Come on. I feel that. Yeah. We're going to stay where we're at? Awesome. Thank you for dropping that in there. So let's take a second to consider what's really going on. We get this idea. Yeah, okay. Truman Show, real movie. It's about a guy that he thinks everyone's watching him. Okay, what am I worried that I might be, that people might be thinking about me? And what's the cost? Patricia drops in peace of mind and focus. Absolutely. But what's going on in our brains? Why is this happening? Some of this stuff is probably going to feel a lot like a review to you, but that doesn't make it any less true. And so sometimes we're here to get a nice little reminder. So here's what's really going on. So this is a picture of my family from a while ago. And they didn't know that, if you take it next to a window that there's a glare. But anyway, it's my family and they're great people. Probably some of your family too. But they had this thing, right, where they needed to survive. And the conditions that they were living in were a little bit different than now. And so they soon realized, as they were developing into a species, that in order to survive, it was going to be better if they didn't go at things alone. So as the brain was forming, there became this instinct to be a part of a tribe, to feel included, to belong, to be accepted, because then this opened up things like the opportunity to reproduce, the opportunity to have food, and the opportunity for protection. So as the brain grew and evolved, the amygdala there, the reptilian brain, the instincts there in the very center, hardwired us to worry about being accepted, because it's pretty binary. Either you're accepted or you die. Although we've evolved to have the ability for higher thought, and although the society that we live in right now, for most of us, hard to say that right now, but for most of us, if we're kicked out, we're not of the tribe, we're not going to die. But for the hardwiring of our brains, we worry. We worry about what other people think. And we worry about what other people think because we want to survive. It is rooted in that. And no matter how much work we do on ourselves, it's impossible for us to be conscious of that all the time. We still find ourselves yearning for acceptance. So much so that there's a psychological term for it called the spotlight effect. There's a psychological term for this worry that other people might be thinking about us, and we hope that they're thinking good things about us. The definition of the spotlight effect is the phenomenon in which people tend to believe they're being noticed more than they really are. The reason behind the spotlight effect comes from our tendency to forget that although we are the center of our own world, we are not the center of everyone else's. And this tendency is especially prominent when we do something atypical, like disagree or challenge someone or put a new idea out there or adopt a new framework to try with our clients. We find ourselves really sensitive to whether or not people are accepting of us when we choose to do something atypical, like grow personally and professionally. So they did some research on the spotlight effect. Cornell University did a study in which they brought in a bunch of young people into a group, and they had a few of these young people in several of the different tests wear this god-awful Barry Manilow t-shirt because they believed that that would make the student stand out in the crowd. After the experiment, they asked the student, hey, the student who wore the Barry Manilow t-shirt, hey, how many people in that crowd do you think would be able to call out that you were wearing a Barry Manilow t-shirt? Of course, the student said, man, I felt so stupid in that extra, extra large Barry Manilow t-shirt. I'm telling you, in that gathering of people, over half of them, at least 50% of those people, if surveyed, would be able to tell you, oh yeah, that idiot wearing a Barry Manilow t-shirt. But in reality, when they surveyed all of the other people who were at the gathering, it was far less than 25% of them who could recall that someone might have been wearing a shirt out of the ordinary, much less a Barry Manilow t-shirt, because not that many people really know who Barry Manilow is anymore. But so the point is, for us, we often think that this is what our existence looks like. We think that this is what our lives look like. Here we are in the middle of our own universe, and when we do something, people are paying attention. Whether good or bad, we think people are watching, commenting, and criticizing what we're doing. But the reality is, now, more than any time in the history of human civilization, with all of the distractions that we've got, the world really looks like this. We are all really looking at Charlene and her husband doing the COVID workout challenge, but then really judging ourselves. Nobody's worried about you. Maybe the only person thinking about you right now is your mom, hoping that you get on a Zoom call with her this weekend, if you know what I mean. So, makes sense. I assume most of us can jive with this information. But if this is all true, if we know this, particularly people in your field, if we know this, why do we continue to engage in these thoughts? And I'm convinced it's because we're depending on others for acceptance and affirmation that they're never going to be able to give us. We're depending on others to tell us we're doing it right, or to tell us we're just right the way that we are, or to tell us we're performing a little bit better than we think we can. My business coach has a great line. He says that all of humans are concerned with two questions. Do they like me? And am I doing a good job? And the reason why we're concerned with those two questions, and the reason why we wonder if they like me and whether or not they think I'm doing a good job, is because for many of us, we haven't figured out yet how to trust that we have inherent value and that our identity is only going to be able to be made whole by us. That's the work. So that's some of the work that I want to start with you here today. We're about to go through several reflection activities. So we're going to go through 4 reflection activities, and I'm going to ask you to share. I'd like to pause at this moment. Are there any questions? Are there any comments? Are there any concerns? If so, feel free to drop it into the chat. If not, say, I'm with you. Let's go. Roll on. Onward. Okay. Thank you, my friends. How did you do this, and how did it create better engagement in your career? Thank you, Suzu. How did I do this, and how did it create better engagement with your career? I'll tell you. I started reflecting and doing a daily journal years and years ago. So I'd say this is all rooted in the power of regular reflection. I think that the most effective leaders are the most reflective leaders. And so over time, I would write down, what did I try, what worked, what didn't work, and what got in the way. Those would be the 4 prompts that I would do in my journal at the end of each day. And when I would write down what got in the way, I realized that a lot of the things that got in the way were imagined. And many of them were my imagined fears about the consequences of what I might do in an imaginary world where someone might judge me or disapprove of me or react a certain way. And so slowly I started writing blogs about that, and people that read my blogs started to really resonate with it. And I thought, okay, we got to address this internal conversation that we worry about what other people think about us. And as a result, that allowed me to say, if I feel this, I can't be the only one. So I made this presentation, and I got to meet great people like Mary doing this presentation. And here we are. Did that answer your question? I hope it did. And Kyle, awesome. Yeah. Do they like me? Do they think I'm doing a good job? Oh, Suzu, the other 3 are, what did I try? How did it go? Hold on. So what did I try? How did it go? What got in the way? And what do I need to adjust moving forward? What did I try? What were the results? What got in the way? What do I need to adjust moving forward? Thank you for digging in and for engaging with the questions. Really appreciate that. That means a lot. Okay, let's do some reflection. So you can think you agree with what we're talking about here, right? You can think, Reagan's right. You can think, yeah, reflection's good. You can think, man, I need to go watch the Truman Show again so that I can realize I do that too. But it's not always about what we think. We have to change what we believe if we're going to really make some progress internally. So this next half of the session, what we're going to do is I'm going to take you through 4 reflection questions that are going to help you install better beliefs. It's going to give you a vision for the way that you want to behave in the future. It's going to give you a compelling purpose, a why behind what we're going to do. And it's going to leave you with some strategy, tactics that you can employ moving forward. That's what we're about to do. It begins with installing better beliefs. And that means that we're going to have to stop believing that people are really thinking about me and we have to start thinking something different. So let's install some better beliefs in this section. Get ready to type or jot something down in response to these questions. I find that the easiest way to help people see differences when working through personal and professional development is to show a before and after. That's the easiest way. Before and after is the easiest way to show change. So I want you to write down some of those things that we put down at the very beginning of this session, the things you worry people might be thinking about you. So for instance, I'm going to write down, I used to believe everyone thinks that I'm too emotional and that I'm too sensitive. Write down that original worry, that original fear that you have. And then we're going to replace that with a new belief by writing, I now believe. Don't worry if you think you'll actually be able to believe it yet. Don't worry if it seems realistic to you yet. Just give me the new belief you would rather have. Imagine in your brain that old worry comes up and you have the ability to take it out and replace it with one. What would the new one be? So for me, I used to believe that people think I'm too emotional and too sensitive. I now believe everyone has an emotional life and desires connection. I just need to help figure out I just need to try different strategies to get to that point of connection with them. Or I used to believe that everyone's going to criticize me if I do something wrong. I now believe no one's paying attention to me, so the stakes really aren't that high. I used to believe, I now believe. I'll give you 30 seconds or so to write that down. We all benefit when you share with us. And if we were in a room, we'd all be able to share. So I'd love to have some of you write down your responses if you're willing. I used to believe people get annoyed with the way that I speak up in meetings. I now believe every team needs someone who's willing to speak their conscience. I used to believe people think I ask too many questions. I now believe people appreciate the chance to engage with someone who will listen. I'll give us about 10 more seconds to dot the I's and cross the T's. And would love to see anyone drop in their thought. If we have any volunteers, that helps us all. All right. Mary says, I used to believe I was bossy. Now I believe I'm assertive and like to be in a leadership position. Love it. Yeah, I used to worry people thought that I'm bossy. Oh man. And I'm a woman and I'm bossy. There's all kinds of stereotypes about that, right? Oh, but what if I could say, no, I'm just assertive. I'm made to be in a leadership position. Like, this is what I do. So much of this is us being ashamed about who we already are. And so we think that we've got to go out into the world and discover who it is that we're supposed to be, when the real work is about recovering who we've always been. We're not supposed to go discover who we're supposed to be. We're supposed to recover who we've always been. But that's hard to do because we worry that people think that the person that we've always been isn't adequate, is too bossy, is too emotional, is too whatever. That's what we're wanting to get in the way of. So let's talk about the new beliefs. I used to believe this, now I believe that. By this point, I hope all of you have installed at least one of those phrases there. Emily says, I used to believe people thought I was weird. Now I think I set an example by being okay with my individuality. I love it. Yeah, man. And it's the weird people that change the world. It's the weird people that are memorable. But for some reason, we worry about being accepted because we're different. I do all the time. Thank you. Thank y'all for sharing. Okay, so we've got the used to believe. We've got the now I believe. I love this in any setting. If you're working with a group of people and you need to do an icebreaker, it's always great to get people to talk about what they used to believe and what they now believe. So we've got these beliefs. We've said, okay, you know what? I brought awareness to the fact that I worry about certain things other people might think about me. Instead of believing the things I used to worry about, I'm going to install a new belief. So we've got the belief, which is great. But we need to take it a step further, because we can't keep whatever has happened to us in the past. We can't let that context continue to influence us. We have to choose how we're going to think and feel moving forward, which means we need a vision for what it looks like for us to adopt that belief. It's not enough just to say, okay, this is a thing I believe. We need to envision ourselves actually installing that belief and acting it out. Visualization can be so powerful. As a part of a meditative practice, as a part of a strategy practice, we need a better vision for our future where we put that belief we just wrote down into play. So here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine yourself 6 months from now, pays you a visit, face mask on, of course, they stay at a distance. And they say to you, hey, you know that webisode, that SonderMind webisode that you did where Reagan talked about stopping thinking about what other people are thinking about you? Well, hey, you did it. You actually installed one of those beliefs about not worrying about people thinking you're weird. And here's what life looks like now that you don't worry about that anymore. What would they say? So imagine yourself from 6 months from now comes up to you and says, hey, as a result of those new beliefs, here's what you're experiencing. What would they say? For me, I'm worried people think I'm too emotional. Me from the future might say, hey, just so you know, as a result of the new belief that you installed, you're like making these connections with people that you used to never make, because you used to be worried about only connecting with people at a professional level of numbers and in business acumen. But now you're willing to realize that the business acumen and the numbers matter, but you're having confidence in this idea that people are multifaceted and you're connecting with that emotional part. It's happening more than it's ever happened in your life. It's amazing over here 6 months from now. For you, what would it look like? Imagine the belief or beliefs you just wrote down are real and a part of your everyday life in the future. What does it look like? For my other example about being afraid to do things wrong, if I install a new belief that I celebrate curiosity and failure because it means learning, I might say, man, hey, 6 months here in the future, you're taking ideas public, you're writing about them on your blog, or you're sharing them in workshops, and they're having so much of a benefit on people. These ideas that you used to be afraid to bring up because they might have been wrong. So for you, what would the 6 month you in the future say? Jot that down. I'll give you 10 or 15 more seconds. And if anyone would like to share, that makes it all better. What does the vision look like? All right, wrap up the vision of what it looks like in the future if you actually believed this. Oh, Kyle dropping it in. Thanks. Okay, so Kyle says this. I used to believe people don't like me. I now believe I should focus less on whether they like me and more on how I can love or help them. Come on. As a result of this new belief, I'm experiencing deeper relationships because I'm helping others feel loved and supported. Beautiful. Man, I love that new belief. And this whole session is about the simple idea. It's not about you. And it's not about you, and it's not about me. And if we can choose to be of service, instead of trying to get what we need from other people, instead of trying to get other people to satisfy the needs of our identity, if we can choose to give instead, then paradoxically, we get what we were after all along, which is a deep sense of purpose and connection, which then affirms us because we decided to not make ourselves our sole priority. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate the bravery there. Beautiful stuff. Okay, so we're halfway through. We've got 2 more reflection questions that we're going to do. Thanks for sticking with me and for sharing. That really means a lot that you're engaging like that, so thank you. I want to remind you what we're doing here. Remember, this whole session is based on this premise that we miss out on our lives and that we aren't able to make our best contributions at work or in relationships because some of us are encumbered by these worries that other people don't like us or don't think that we're doing a good job. And we've got our own brand of chatter in the head. So the work that we're doing is understanding that this happens to all of us, that it's not useful anymore, and we're installing better beliefs and a better vision for a future where we can start to remember that more often so that daily when we wake up and we get out of the bed, maybe that chatter cloud doesn't follow us anymore. So the third reflection question after our vision: we only change when we have a purpose or a compelling reason to live differently. So the beliefs are cool, the vision's cool, but how many people believe that, I'm an athlete, I'm going to get in shape, I'm an athlete, and they have a vision, they stick a picture of what they want to look like up on their mirror, but then nothing happens. So the back half is about how do we make something happen? And the first step is making sure that we've got a clear and compelling purpose, that we've got a why that means something to us. And for us to have a why that really means something to us, we have to start with the consequences of not taking action. There is no good movie that doesn't have stakes. What I mean is, the only reason why we go see movies is because there is a chance that the character might not get what they want. A good movie means that the character might not destroy the Death Star. The character might not go back to Pride Rock and defeat Scar. The character might not make it back to save Gotham City. There have to be the risk of negative consequences or else we're not engaged. So for you, why do you want to install the beliefs that we talked about? Why do you want to live into the vision that we talked about? And what's at stake? So your next question is about your purpose and your why. And I want you to write down, if I ignore or avoid these shifts I need to make, if I avoid this belief that I need to install, if I don't live into that vision, what's at stake here? For me, if I don't believe that me being emotional isn't a burden on people, I'm going to miss out on relationships at a personal level and at a professional level. When I do things like this, I'm not going to make an impact. If I ignore or avoid the new belief, the shift that I need to make around me being afraid of doing things wrong, I'm going to find myself 3 years from now, and this is the greatest nightmare of all. I'm going to find myself 3 years from now in the exact same place that I am today. I will not have changed or grown at all. That's what's at stake here. That's what's at stake with me believing that other people are concerned about me. I'm not going to grow. I'm going to I'm going to finish my life the same as I was when I was 34 years old. That's kind of motivating to me. So 10 more seconds, 10 or 15 more seconds, jot down for you what's at stake. If you don't put these beliefs into practice, what's the risk here? You know, you might pull from what's the cost that we wrote earlier. So just as we have the stake, the negative consequences, we also need to have the carrot and the positive consequences. We need to have what happens if the character saves the day. So your next statement to fill in is, so it's essential to my growth that I give this attention because, and then what's the positive scenario? Because if I do it, I might be able, if for me with my emotional example, if I can believe that being an emotionally connected guy is a gift, I might be able to connect with guys who've never had a serious conversation about their feelings before in their lives. Or for my example, if I'm afraid of doing things wrong, it's essential to my growth. I give this attention because if I really believe that people aren't concerned about me doing life right or wrong, I might finally be able to write that little ebook that I've been wanting to write for 3 years. It could really touch someone and really help them along their personal development journey. So for you, we talked about the negative consequences, but what are the positive? Why? Because we're wanting to give this a purpose. We're wanting to buttress your beliefs with a deep purpose. We're wanting to make sure that that vision isn't just a vision, but that there's a purpose behind it that makes you want it so bad that you're willing to do the next part of this reflection. Okay. Wrapping up. Jotting down your final notes on this. Finally, and this is our last reflection question. Chat me if you've got any questions so far, but finally, nothing's going to change unless we take action. And I just want to give you a few quick prompts that could help spur you into action moving forward. Okay. So we're going to build us a real strategy. So this is our last reflection question. It's going to be a series of a few questions. So when you think about the belief that you want to install and the vision that you want to live into, and you've got the purpose that is really compelling, in order for you to bring that into reality, what mindsets do you need to be adopting on a regular basis? Do you need to be adopting a mindset of resilience, knowing that anytime you feel like other folks are judging you, that you need to remember they're not thinking about me at all, I need to move forward? Do you need to adopt the mindset of the victor, where whenever you're handed a negative situation, you're able to see the opportunity in it and not believe that your identity is defined by your circumstances? What new mindsets might you need? What new story might you need to tell yourself? After mindsets, what behaviors would matter for you? For me, as I mentioned earlier, reflection is so important. I know that waking up early allows me to get more clarity on my day. I know that journaling and reflecting allows me to make better decisions because I can see with clarity what's happening. I know that exercising gets me out of my head. I know that drinking a smoothie in the morning is going to give me all the nutrients that I need. What are the behaviors that matter to you? What behaviors did you maybe, and you guys, you're all here because you're into professional development. So I'm sure that you've done a gratitude journal and you've reflected and you've meditated, but oftentimes we forget those, and may this be a reminder. Do you need to download Headspace again and get back on 15 minutes on the cushion in the morning? What behaviors can help you see with clarity to remember nobody's thinking about you? And then the next one, we can't do this alone. I know for me, before this session today, I rehearsed it with my girlfriend. Anytime I do a session, I need to rehearse that with her. I know whenever I feel like I'm not in a good place in my career, whenever I think nobody's hiring me to do anything, nobody ever wants to hear me speak again, I know I can call my father. So for you, who are the people that can help get a little bit of that crazy out of your heads when you go down a spiral of thinking, oh man, everybody's thinking about whether or not they like me or whether or not I'm doing a good job. What people can you depend on? And then lastly, as we're coming to a close before we'll open it up for a few questions, I like to end any kind of a reflection session with this. What are 3 things that you can do in this time period, today, this week, this month, that will allow you to continue to eradicate the thoughts from your head that people are concerned with you at all, and replace your new beliefs so that you get whatever it is that you want out of your life or your work or your relationships? So what could you do today? It could be, maybe you need to have a conversation with someone who you think is thinking negative things about you, so you can just dispel that rumor completely. So today you could say, I'm going to text Joe. Or you could say, you know what? I know that my old college professor was a great mentor of mine, and every time I talk to them, they help me get my head on straight. I'm going to send them an email with a calendar invite for a conversation next week. In the next week, what might you do? Maybe you go get yourself a new journal because you haven't journaled in a while. Maybe you download the Headspace app again and you start meditating. This month, what might you do? Maybe you need to block a whole day for yourself to reconnect with what really matters, because everything on your calendar right now you've put on there because of what other people want. And maybe you need a day to clear the plate and realize what you want and what you need. And remember that nobody's sitting out there judging you for the way that you're spending your time or your days in your practice. So what could you do this day? What could you do in the next week? What could you do this month? At this point in the session, as it comes to a close, someone invariably asks, I'm going to come back to that. Someone invariably asks, Reagan, but what if people really are thinking about me? I know that this neighbor is actually out to get me. Or I know that my sister-in-law talks to my mother-in-law about me all the time, and she is out to get me. What if people really are thinking about me? Well, unfortunately, there are really some people in the world who are just crappy people. A mentor of mine in college told me something really important when I came to him with this same question. And he said, I like to follow this advice. If you have an issue with me, and I don't know you have an issue with me, we don't have an issue. So it is up to others to make sure that you know that they have a thing going on with you. Otherwise, just let it go. In order for us to actually change the way that we see the world, in order for us to actually change our beliefs, our behaviors need to change. So I encourage you to take the beliefs and the vision and the deep why, or the purpose and the strategy, and put them to real work. Change is going to happen over time. I encourage you to use this network to talk with one another. And I appreciate your time today. You got this. You can contact me on any of the following channels. And I would now like to open it up for questions. Mary, unless you've got anything that you would like to say.
No, thank you so much for that, Reagan. We'll leave it open for questions for a few minutes and see if anybody has any questions that they have or any comments.
Feel free to drop them in on anything. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you being engaged. You can't even see your faces, so you guys chatting and engaging, that means a lot.
While people are typing out their questions, I again just want to say thank you so much, Reagan. For those of you who may not know about SonderMind, we are a mental health organization that supports therapists to thrive in their private practice by taking care of administrative areas such as credentialing, billing, and marketing, while simultaneously supporting clients that are seeking care to get matched with a therapist best for them. We are currently in Colorado, Texas, as well as Arizona, and we're quickly expanding our telemarketing services, or telehealth services, I'm sorry. Telehealth services, so a lot of exciting things are happening with SonderMind. We invite you to join us to our next week's episode on May 12th, where we're going to dive into the basics of change management to support the social changes that will help to move us forward in a better future. But we'll definitely stay for a few more minutes to be able to see if anybody has any questions or anything else that that Reagan can help us with. But again, thank you so much, Reagan.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Crazy that this is the work that I get to do, to have conversation with people who want to grow. Love it. Thank you all for digging in as you're leaving. Thank you, SonderMind, for making this happen today.
Awesome. Well, have a great weekend, everybody.